Hey everybody, forgive any background sounds. I am going to be filming this on our back porch. There may be some yard noises, possibly the dog running around, but you should be able to get the basic idea of what we're talking about here in this episode, this review, which is going to be about the death of Dick Long. Now, The Death of Dick Long is not currently streaming for free anywhere, although it is down to about $1 as I'm filming this for rental on Amazon and other platforms. So I'm assuming it's probably going to show up streaming pretty soon on one of your major platforms if you don't want to spend $1, but $1 is a pretty cheap price to rent something. So this was released in 2019. It did make the festival circuit, and you might have noticed it did get a very brief theatrical release in the fall of 2019. I want to say around September. Now, The Death of Dick Long is directed by Daniel Scheinert. He is most known for Swiss Army Man. I never saw Swiss Army Man. I had too many people tell me that they hated the movie and it was terrible. Maybe I'll go back and revisit it, although I have a feeling it won't be up my alley from what I've read. Now, this, on the other hand, I believe is a little more of a straightforward movie, although it does have its strange elements to it. So, it's an A24 film, by the way. A24 is a studio that's releasing a whole variety of films, generally indie art house sorts of films, but they're getting quite a reputation for some pretty great output in the last 3 or 4 years, especially horror, but other types as well. This is not horror. Okay, The Death of Dick Long begins with 3 friends, probably in their early 30s, and they are all in Alabama. I personally live in Alabama, so it was interesting to me to see a movie that I could tell just by the look of it that it had been filmed in the South, and I had even assumed before I even noticed that it was probably in Alabama. Now, that being said, there's a bit of that stereotyping of a type of person that would be living in Alabama, just the same way there's a bit of stereotyping in Fargo. Once again, that comparison is apt because a lot of people are calling this a Southern Fargo, if you want to get an overall sort of tone to the movie. These 3 friends at the very beginning, you see them all partying. These are the kind of dudes that are in their 30s and still have a rock band named Pink Floyd. They're going to be out drinking on a weeknight. They're going to be out shooting off fireworks. Kind of, they've never kind of totally given up their, partying youth. And as you see them, these 3 friends are partying away, and it kind of is a slow motion sort of a montage, leading to kind of a fade out. And then you have a quick jump cut to 2 of the friends you just saw speeding in a car towards a hospital with the other friend, Dick Long, bleeding to death in the back of their car. And they speed up, they dump him off at the entrance to a hospital and speed off into the night, hoping that he's going to be okay. Of course, based on the title, he's not okay. So the first third of this movie is essentially them discovering in a roundabout way that he has died, and then trying to figure out how they're going to cover up that they had any involvement in that death. And the local authorities are thinking that there's some sort of a killer around or something. They are not good criminals, because it wasn't actually something that had been something planned by them. It was an accident. Apparently what had occurred. You don't know what had occurred. You just see the aftermath. A lot of the first third or so of the movie is the misadventures of them trying to cover up any involvement they had with this. Once they discover he's dead, they're not good at it, and they bumble through various things. And there's various levels of comedy there. And it's fairly broad, but as it's going along, you're getting some of that banter, kind of similar to Fargo, some real character interactions that are humorous. At one point, they're trying to clean blood out of the back of their car, and they're talking about how they did it in Pulp Fiction, and it doesn't seem to be as easy as it was in Pulp Fiction. So that's kind of a nice little nod. At this point, you kind of are getting a feel for the main characters. You got the 2 friends that are surviving. You got Earl, and he's played by Andre Highland, and you've got Zeke. And Zeke is really your main character here, and he is a married, family man, but he's still kind of has one foot in this, younger life. He's by Michael Abbott Jr. So, whereas Earl is still just kind of living in a trailer, always smoking his vape, always just kind of in a party mode. Zeke can definitely get into party mode, but he's also trying to be a dad and a husband and be kind of responsible as well. So he's the one you're really trying to follow, and as he tries to cover up these things. Then on top of that, you've got Lydia, Zeke's wife, and that's played by Virginia Newcomb. She's excellent. I would say she's probably the shining star acting-wise of this movie. And then there's several other characters, but the other main character I think that comes into play is there is a young police officer who's kind of just getting to dip her toes into detective work, even though she's not officially a detective. She's played by Sarah Baker. Her name is Officer Dudley in this. She is probably the closest thing to your character that you have in Fargo, whereas she's like a country police officer who is smarter than people give her credit for. So that's very similar in that way. Now, all of this first third might probably sounds very reminiscent, very Fargo-like, and it is somewhat, where I think this to me turns the corner and becomes not better than Fargo necessarily, but becomes its own thing and really starts to shine in its own way, is in the second half of the movie. Because essentially, as things go on, and once again, I'm not going to spoil what happens, a big point of the movie is discovering what happened, how Dick Long died. And when you find that out, it turns everything. Now, keep in mind this is a very, very dark comedy. Some would even say disturbing, because the way he died is a way that could be disturbing to some people. Also could be considered really unrealistic, although there is some precedent for what happened to him actually occurring in the real world. So take that for what it is. The thing that happens is, though, as you discover what happens, then the tension is changed, and you are trying to see the main character, especially Zeke, struggling with trying to keep this lie and trying to keep this secret. And to me, that's where the movie really shines. Whereas in Fargo, the whole thing is you're following Gunderson as she goes along and solves this case, and you're watching these kind of bumbling, ever increasingly violent acts happen, and that's kind of the trajectory of that movie. This movie, the second half, the trajectory really is with the criminal, or with the person trying to keep the secret from the law and from his wife and from everybody he knows, and not doing a good job at it. And slowly the tension builds as these scenes start to unfold. I will especially point out there's a scene where he has to finally come clean to his wife on what happened with him and his friends. And both of them are excellent in the acting in that. And the awkwardness and the tension is just incredible. There's also a lot of humor to it as well. Very, very dark humor, but it's impeccable. And there's just little touches in there, without giving things away really, there's touches in there like she has a knife in her hand because she's been working in the kitchen, and the way she uses that knife as he starts to unfold what's happening, and there's this constant extra level of threat, like is she going to use the knife on him, is she going to attack him? There's points where she kind of hides it from her daughter, their kid, so their kid doesn't quite know the level of the argument they're having. And I would say there's one other scene towards the very end with the officer and a bunch of these characters that you've met along the way, where again you have this incredible level of tension once again, where and you know what the characters know, and you know who doesn't know certain things, and you're just waiting to see when certain things are revealed and how they're revealed and how it's going to play out. That is where this movie, I think, really shines and really has some power. And there's some interactions in here which I think are excellent as far as just writing and acting that are rewatchable and very enjoyable if you like this sort of dark crime character drama with comedy elements. It's quite a fun one. I really liked it. For me, it gets about a 4 star. I would say it's pretty solid. I mean, it doesn't transcend to the next level, but if you're into this kind of thing, I think it's a really good installment, and could really fit right into that Fargo universe, the Coen Brothers universe. Definitely, it has that sort of sensibility if you appreciate that sort of film. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I will be back soon with another review.